What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to take you guys through my own essential players for the upcoming FPL 2021/2022 season. Now, are there any players that are actually 100% essential to have in your own drafts? No, of course they're not. We kind of saw this a couple of videos ago with Ben Crabtree's team, where he managed to win FPL without a single Liverpool option for the entire season. Now, no, I'm not kind of advising you guys to not go with any Liverpool options, but you can kind of understand what I'm saying there. Maybe if you didn't own a Mo Salah, you could upgrade to 2 premium defenders, 2 premium midfielders, something like that, and it would actually get you more points in the long run. So a lot of solutions to FPL, a lot of ways to play it, but I'm going to be taking you guys through my own essential selection and the players that I think you guys should be having in your current drafts and hopefully in your game week 1 deadline squad. So that's something you guys are interested in. Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So before we get into the actual players, I wanted to talk about this template, inverted commas, that has been spoken about quite a lot through the last couple seasons. So what a template is and how I would kind of define it is that take any certain FPL community. I'm going to kind of use FPL Twitter here because that's probably the biggest one, but there's also kind of a Reddit community if you guys are on Reddit. But basically what it is, it's a team that a lot of people have, or a selection of players that a lot of people have in their current drafts. So how to kind of see the template is simply just look at what people are posting. People love to show you their latest tinkerings and their latest drafts that they managed to come up with. So you can kind of compare these to each other and you'll see that the majority of sides are actually looking quite similar. They might not be 100% the same, but there definitely are some players or some price structures that are coming out to be quite popular over there on FPL Twitter. But what I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about is this template a bad thing? And I personally don't think it is. And that's just because most of the people over on FPL Twitter are your more seasoned managers or your more consistent ones. Now, this isn't 100% accurate. You're probably going to find someone in the middle of Finland that's never touched Twitter that picks his team by simply choosing the colors of the kits he likes and has managed to finish in the top 10k in the last 5 seasons. But the majority of the consistent managers I do find create content either on Twitter, YouTube, or whatever platform they want to. So what this kind of creates is it creates a player base of managers that take the game super seriously and usually are going to be changing their teams every single game week and are up to date with the current news and the top team selections for certain positions. And that's what FPL Twitter has kind of become. So no, I don't think the template's a bad thing at all. It's simply just a collection of managers that have pretty good insight into their player selections. Now, will these players actually end up performing? No one kind of knows. We can't really predict the future, but generally their selections do end up performing quite well. And at the start of the season, I think it's perfectly fine to go template because you're kind of going for safety. And I think this is where I'm going to be going for this season, is that I'm really going for a super safe approach, a super conservative approach, and then we can chop and change those premium assets or those more highly owned options as the season kind of progresses. Now, yes, it is the optimum scenario to go different and then for your players to absolutely bang, as that's how you're going to win FPL. But in the long term and from a more realistic point of view, that usually doesn't end up happening, and your more shared options generally are a bit more consistent. So that's what I'm going to be going for, and that's why you'll see in this video the essential players could be considered a little bit boring, but I think these are the players that you guys should be focusing on to get a good start to the season, and then we can bring those differentials in as the season kind of progresses. A last thing to also add is don't really focus on the template of FPL Twitter or FPL Reddit because that's actually a very small player base in the grand scheme of things. We're going to have a couple of million managers at the end of the day, and I think FPL Twitter makes up only a small percentage of that. So you don't really have to worry about your FPL team looking exactly the same as the people you follow on your social media of choice. So now going on to the player selections and the essential players. The first player is not one of my essential selections right now, but he has the potential to become one of the most essential players in the game if the transfer to Man City does come about. And that's going to be Mr. Harry Kane himself, or Sir Harry Kane, as we can now address him. But I think with Harry Kane, if he moves to Man City, he's definitely going to be one of the most essential players that you guys have to own. And that's just because a nailed player for Man City is absolute FPL gold. I mean, just look at Kevin De Bruyne in the last couple seasons. Although not many people are looking at him currently, I think a lot of people will be bringing him in from now to the end of the season when Man City's fixtures might look a little bit better than they currently look. So Harry Kane, 100% if he goes to Man City, will be an essential player, but currently he is at Spurs, and that's why I haven't selected him in this specific video. If he does manage to get the transfer, we'll definitely be doing a ton of drafts with him in, because he will be one of the most nailed players in my current lineup, and we'll have to chop and change some of my more premium defenders and my midfielders to kind of accommodate the English striker. But going on to the the first selection, and we're going to start off with the defenders. It's going to be Luke Shaw from Manchester United. So the reason I've opted for Luke Shaw is that not only has he had an absolutely stellar Euros, but when you do look at the stats from last season, he ranks third best on expected points. And just remember that there are more expensive defenders than him. We've got Trent AlexanderArnold, we have a player like a Ben Chilwell. Those are the only two options that actually perform better than him on last season's stats. And at 5.5, an absolute steal I feel at that price. The only kind of hindrance about Luke Shaw is his current rib injury that he did have. So apparently during the Euros he actually was playing with the injured rib or a broken rib, and you need about 6 weeks of rest to recover from this injury. Now I'm pretty sure with Alex Telles now being out, confirmed out today by the United manager, so he will definitely be missing the opening couple games. So I think that Luke Shaw might be rushed back to fitness. And that's going to be good for us, maybe not good for Luke Shaw long term, but I do think he's expected to start in game week 1 against Leeds. Now that Leeds fixture is actually quite bad. If you do look on the right side of your guys' screen, what I did was I went over to Fantasy Football Fix and I used their fixture ticker to kind of rank these fixtures. I added a little bit of my own flair to them because I think some of the ratings were based on last year's stats, and I think this season some teams might be playing better or worse than they kind of predicted. So I did chop and change some of the fixture ratings myself, but it is still consistent with that kind of increasing difficulty on your bottom right from blue to red. So starting off with Luke Shaw, I've also highlighted his projected points from Fantasy Football Fix, and he's projected to score 18.5 points in the opening 5 game weeks. Another little bit of breaking news as well to why I'm actually favoring Luke Shaw is that Manchester United have just confirmed the transfer of Varane from Real Madrid, and I think he's going to shore up that centre-back position quite well, as he is quite a decent centre-back, to be honest. So I think that only makes Luke Shaw a better price at 5.5, and when you do kind of compare him to the Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool options, he comes in quite a lot cheaper than them, so that's why I really like him at this price point. And for me, he's going to be my first kind of essential defender that you guys should own, with the caveat that he's going to be back for game week 1, recovering from that rib injury that he currently does have. So the second player is going to be Trent AlexanderArnold, a personal favorite of me over the last couple seasons of FPL. Now this does come with a little bit of a disclaimer like Luke Shaw. So if Trent AlexanderArnold is accompanied by Virgil van Dijk at that centre-back slot for Liverpool, I think he becomes essential, or at least becomes a better option than he would without Virgil van Dijk. So with Virgil, we don't really know what's going to be happening with him. It has been rumoured that he's going to be featuring in the upcoming Liverpool friendlies, so maybe monitor that situation, because I'm pretty sure with 2 weeks to go, if he's starting friendlies, he'll be fine for that Norwich game come game week 1. So if Virgil's back in the lineup, 100% makes Trent a better option, just makes Liverpool defensively more solid, and I think from an attacking point of view, it also allows Trent maybe to get a little bit more forward than he would if he had another centre-back at that position. So that's why I think Trent, a lot of people are saying at that expensive price point, might not be the best value. We actually kind of proved this ourselves in the valuation video we did at the start of this preseason. We actually showed that he was mid-table based on last season's total points, but I personally think that Trent will score more than last season, just because with Virgil van Dijk back, with Joe Gomez back, I think they'll rack up a couple more clean sheets than they did last season. So 24.8 points projected for the opening couple game weeks, and at 7.5, that's actually quite good. You'll see with some of the other forwards, some of the other midfielders actually projected to score less points than that. So at 7.5, Trent still might be a steal at that price point. The fixtures also look quite good. So I actually forgot to mention this, but what I did was that I used the defensive difficulty ratings for the defensive players and then the attacking fixture ratings for the attackers. So you will see some changes between the Liverpool options. Spoiler alert, Salah's coming up. So you'll see that the defensive and the attacking ratings are actually different for the respective teams. So starting off with 2 lovely fixtures against Norwich and Burnley, I think that Liverpool have the potential to keep a clean sheet in both of these. And then they face Chelsea and Leeds, which interestingly enough, Fix actually rates the Leeds fixture worse than the Chelsea one, but I think that's just because Liverpool are facing Chelsea at home versus they face Leeds away, with Leeds being quite an attacking side versus maybe Chelsea against the top 6 sides. This might be quite a close clash. The final game in Trent's kind of next 5 fixtures is going to be Crystal Palace, which yet again I think could be a clean sheet in the bag, but with Patrick Vieira coming in, it looks like they're going to be quite an attacking side, so that might be quite an interesting game to see if Liverpool can keep a clean sheet in. But I personally think Trent is one of those essential players if Virgil van Dijk is back, but if Virgil van Dijk is still going to be out, I still think that Trent is a great option to go for. So I already mentioned that we're going to be covering him. It's going to be Mo Salah, probably the most essential player that I would recommend that you guys do have, but you really don't need me to tell you that. So I'm not going to spend too much time on Mo Salah. I'm just going to say that he's projected to score 31.2 points, so definitely one of the best options, best campy options even for the opening 5 game weeks. And you can see here that the fixtures have changed. So the Burnley fixture has changed to kind of a medium fixture, with the rest staying pretty consistent with the defensive ratings. but I still think that Mo Salah can score against anyone and is one of the most fixture-proof players in the Prem at the moment. So the next midfielder that we're going to be going over that has actually caused quite a lot of controversy over on FPL Twitter and in the FPL community, it's Bruno Fernandes. And I honestly don't really understand why. I do understand that he didn't have the best end to last season and his Euro performance was pretty dismal, but this is Bruno Fernandes we're talking about. Might be a little bit of a pen merchant, but he does score the penalties when he gets them, and that equals FPL points. So you can't really knock him down for that, and at 12 million is quite expensive, but he is projected to score 25.9 points. This is less than Mo Salah, quite a few less. I think overall in terms of the 5 fixtures that they do have at the start of the season, they're better than Liverpool's, but I think Liverpool have 1 or 2 better fixtures on paper, if you know what I'm saying. So Leeds is a tough fixture in my opinion, that's why it's rated as a medium. I think you could even take that maybe to a red fixture because just how defensively strong Leeds were towards the end of last season. But then Southampton, Wolves, Newcastle and West Ham definitely have potential for points, but I think maybe more from a defensive point of view. You can see here that West Ham and Wolves are actually rated as a light red fixture, which is quite interesting for me. I personally think that Wolves might be an easier fixture than this on paper, but maybe that's just based on the stats from last season and we actually are kind of underestimating Wolves in that regard. But Southampton, Newcastle, I think that Newcastle game might be the game week that we actually captain Bruno Fernandes over a Mo Salah or your other options, just because I think that United should have a comfortable win against Newcastle at home. So Bruno Fernandes, I still think he's an essential player. There has been the introduction of a Sancho coming in as the newly signed player for United, but I don't think that Sancho covers Bruno Fernandes, especially at the start of the season. Yes, he probably will start for them since he's going to have a full preseason with United, but I just think that I would rather go with Bruno Fernandes for the start of the games and then just simply downgrade him if Sancho manages to bang in the opening couple. That's just a simple downgrade that we can go for, and this is kind of the thing about these premium options that makes them essential, is that it's a lot easier to downgrade them than it is to kind of upgrade them and scramble for those precious free transfers in the opening couple game weeks. So I think that I would definitely be going for Bruno Fernandes, and I think most people will. I think if you see a no Bruno draft, don't trust those managers because come game week 1's deadline, I think they're going to kind of back out of that decision and Bruno Fernandes is going to make his way into that kind of midfield of those respective teams. So now moving on to the forwards, and the 2 forwards that I favor and I think are essential. The first one is going to be Ollie Watkins from Aston Villa. And Ollie Watkins is essential in my opinion for the first 3 game weeks. So after that, I really don't mind. You can simply just downgrade him, ship him on, upgrade him, do whatever you want to Ollie Watkins. But for those opening 3 against Watford, Newcastle and Brentford, I would 100% have him in my starting lineup. And that's why I think at 7.5, essential play in my opinion from a forward point of view. I think the standout forward to kind of own besides Harry Kane if he moves to Man City, and projected to score 19.7 points, which is quite respectable in terms of that price bracket. So I think with Ollie Watkins, you might probably argue that without Jack Grealish, if Jack Grealish is kind of going to move to Man City, which is rumored at this current stage, I might make him a worse option, but I think with that kind of money they're going to get from Jack Grealish, they will do some upgrades in terms of the creativity. We've seen Buendia already kind of providing assists to Ollie Watkins in preseason, so I think he's going to kind of fill that void of Jack Grealish. I might not do it as well, but I think that he still will be getting some service, and there might be some other upgrades in terms of the winger positions if they do get that cash for Jack Grealish. So Ollie Watkins, still a great option. I think he had a great season last season. A lot of people saying that he couldn't finish, but I think the stats are actually looking quite good for him, and I think that he's going to kind of replicate that and have a really good 2021/2022 season. And now for the final player in my essential list, might be a little bit of a controversial one, but I'm going to be going for Antonio from West Ham. So Antonio, Watkins, those have been my 2 kind of main strikers since they've come in. They haven't really left many of my drafts, and both of them coming in at 7.5 really helps their case. So you can actually see that Fantasy Football Fix is predicting Antonio to score more points than Ollie Watkins in the opening 5 fixtures, and that's going to be 22 points on the dot, with fixtures against Newcastle, Crystal Palace and Southampton being particularly juicy. They do face Leicester and United, which aren't great, but I still think that Antonio can score against them, especially if West Ham kind of replicate the form they showed last season, where they managed to finish near to the top of the Premier League table. So take that form, incorporate that into the beginning of this season. I think that Antonio is projected to do quite well, and I personally think that he will, and that's why he's in my current drafts, and I think that you guys should be heavily considering including him in your own teams. With the kind of forward department, we have a bundle of options there. Ian Nacho also comes in at 7.5. 1.5, but I think if Antonio is fit, he plays and he plays well, and that's why I think that we just have to monitor him over preseason and make sure that he's not kind of injured, because he is quite an injury-prone player. But I think if he is on the starting lineup, you can basically assume that he's going to be getting you points in that respective fixture. But this is basically wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new or have not subscribed yet. Do you agree with my own essential list? Maybe you guys have your own essential picks. Drop them down in the comments below and let's get a little bit of a debate going. I always love conversations with you guys down in the comments. I'll be seeing you guys for a bunch of videos coming up in the next couple days, so make sure that you have turned that bell notification on so you don't miss out on any of my great FPL content, if I do say so myself. I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.